Hey guys, welcome to the Raven's Knock. Today I've got my co host with me, Jamie.
Hey guys.
And today we're going to talk about a story that is very sad and kind of want to get your thoughts on this story when it's all over, on what you think actually happened. So, this is a story about a child, so I will give you that trigger warning. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Hey Ravens, welcome to the Ravens Knock. I'm your host, Amy. I want to thank you guys for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and also referring your friends. If you're not a premium member, you can do so for $7 a month, which is like a cup of coffee. It does help the show out as podcasting is not free. And you get ad-free content, bonus episodes that no one else gets. And with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Please note that the content of this recording may contain graphic material, including torture, and explicit language may be used. The opinions are of my own and may be offensive to some listeners. They are my opinions. Everyone has them, and if you do not agree, then ignore them like an adult and move on. Listener discretion is strongly advised. It had been nearly 2 weeks since she had eaten well, or had gotten any sleep. The voices were back, and signs were everywhere. They were stronger than ever, and she was struggling to overcome them. She knew the time was getting close. They were on their way to Tennessee, to her parents' home, to get the rest of her belongings, as they finally had bought a place in Florida. And they were finally going to settle down. They had been living here and there, in and out of hotel rooms, at friends' places, in their vehicles. This had been going on for years. Hannah, their baby of 13 months, was mobile now, and they really needed to find a place to settle down. Chloe thought that once she settled, the voices and the signs would stop, and she could have a normal life. Or that's what she was hoping for, anyway. She was against modern medicine and had begun taking CBD to try to help, but it seemed to be making things worse. Her husband was really strict on what they could eat, what they could drink and do, what they can take. She wasn't allowed to see a doctor, and she was really afraid to, as she thought that they would commit her into the mental hospital. But at one point it got so bad that she begged to go. But Ben Michael, her husband, said absolutely not.
Were they of some type of different religion? Like, what kind of religion were they?
No, so they refused to identify as any religion. They also refused to identify as a cult. But now they practiced just as a cult would, and the things that they done was in a cult-like fashion.
Independently or with another group of believers?
No, they were independent.
Interesting.
Yeah, they were into polygamy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now they didn't go to like a Mormon church. The only church that they mentioned was a church called the 12 Tribes.
Oh, that place.
Yes, if you want to call that a church.
With
Yeah.
the yellow shop or whatever what was that called that they're...
Yeah, they had the shop. Yeah, we saw that in a documentary, didn't we?
Yeah, what was the name of that thing?
Yeah, and that's how they would recruit their members, was from their little cafes.
Yeah,
that
we
they
said,
had.
now on our travels, we're never going to one of those places.
Yeah, I was like, wait a second, that sounds familiar. I've got a whole story on that I'm fixing to launch. Yeah, you might not want to go in there. But yeah, her husband, Ben Michael, was very controlling. He was very manipulative, and he was very, very smart.
I'm sure he didn't look at himself as manipulative, though. It seems like that every time.
Anybody that's manipulative says that they're not manipulative.
Exactly.
Are you kidding?
You are so right.
I mean, he had a total of 3 wives, Chloe being the first wife. Now, he controlled what they ate, whom they talked with, what they drank, what they watched, when they slept, their money, every part of their lives.
Shit, we thought our dads were strict.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, I did. But now this is on a different level because, I mean, he had them drinking reverse osmosis water.
Drink your piss.
No, but they did drink their own piss.
Oh,
they did
Lord.
drink their own urine. They did do that. But reverse osmosis water is a water that's completely pure of all contaminants. Now, I did have reverse osmosis water when I had a saltwater tank,
Yeah.
and it is really good water, but it provides absolutely no nutrients, and you can actually dehydrate yourself because it is not hydrating at all.
What's the point?
I know it is like it has no nutrients whatsoever. But now I will agree it tastes very good. But there's nothing in there that's got any nutrients in
It's
it.
like pleasure water.
Yeah. Of course, everything I like is not good for me.
Is that a toxic trait?
But probably. The only people she was allowed to talk to were people that she was supposed to convert into the group. Now, Chloe met Ben Michael while waiting on a bus stop when she was only 16 years old.
That's young.
Yeah, they exchanged numbers. She was a little young for Ben Michael at that time, but Chloe wasn't happy at home. And a year later, Chloe calls Ben Michael, and he gets to her, and they run off together. Now, Ben Michael was 37 at that time, and
Holy shit.
Chloe was 17.
See, that's pedophilia.
Yes. Yeah. Chloe had an unstable childhood. She already had some mental issues going on. She had ran away several times, oftentimes staying with different boyfriends. She had trauma in her life growing up and never received the proper treatment for those traumas. This led to self-harm, and she attempted suicide on more than one occasion. But when she met Ben Michael, she thought she had met someone that truly loved her for who she was and would be there to protect her and would never leave her. So she attached very quickly to him and was very eager to please him, as you can imagine.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he loved that. That was like...
Yeah, now this included agreeing to his ways of having multiple wives and a lifestyle that he chose to have. Now, Chloe was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, which is schizophrenia with mood. It's when someone has thoughts or perceptions that are different. They may see or hear things that really aren't there. They may have delusions or disorganized thinking and depression and mania. She was also diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder. This is lifetime triggered. It's a fear of abandonment that happens when there's a trauma that happens in your life at a very young age. You tend to have unstable relationships. Your emotions are to the extreme, either on one side or the other. Mm-hmm. And you tend to hang on tightly to people. In her world, with her delusion, she thought she had special powers and skills. And she got those powers when she was a teenager, and what she could do with those would impact the entire world. Now, with you and I, our thoughts consist of us. And this is kind of hard to explain. What I do impacts me and perhaps my family.
Right.
But in her way of thinking, what she does impacts the entire world. So the decision she makes would impact the entire world. It doesn't stop at her.
Mm.
So everything she does is like on a very broad spectrum.
Wow.
If that makes... So it's almost as she's responsible for the world.
The whole world on her shoulders.
Yeah. Now, the morning of the murder, the group, which consisted of Ben Michael, Chloe, which was her, their daughter Hannah, who was a toddler, the other two wives, and a friend of Ben Michael's and his wife, went to Whole Foods. They had left the Whole Foods market and went to a church service called the 12 Tribes. It was at this church service where Chloe said she got her instruction. The pastor or the leader was talking about acceptance of death, and she took that as a sign that it was time for her to end her and Hannah's life. See, she felt like she had sinned by having a child with Ben Michael because he had taken other wives, and she kept pouring her sin into Hannah every time she breastfed her.
Wow, that is extreme. And can you imagine the weight on the shoulders of that pastor who gave that message? I wonder if he ever thought about that.
Probably not. I just wonder what he thought about that after that came out in court.
That'd be a juicy interview to get to do.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you can't go through life being responsible with what everybody perceives as your message, I guess, per se.
Yeah. That's definitely a grandiose, vision of her importance to society.
Yeah, acceptance of death, I wouldn't take that as, okay, now it's my time to end my life and end my life of my child. A normal person wouldn't automatically think that. But somebody who has delusions like that, who are automatically seeing signs from here, there, and everywhere,
Totally different.
Now, she had resisted so much. And she had been resisting, for a couple of months. She thought she had to end both of their lives as they both were a sin. And if that didn't happen, then the whole world would suffer. She thought that everything she did was evil and everything was connected with the world and affected the world, not just her or the people around her, but it went out to the whole world. So she was in her mind, saving the world. And she had resisted as much as she could, that she could no longer resist anymore. But before that day, she had made a desperate move for help. The group was at an apartment of a friend, and she took off running down the street in the middle of the road, just screaming and yelling. And this was a busy street. And Ben Michael and his friend Jason took off running behind her. A lady pulled over to help her, and that's when an altercation took place between Jason, Ben Michael's friend, and her. The lady was trying to help Chloe, and Chloe was saying that she needed to contact her mother, and she needed to get to her mother. And so this lady is seeing Chloe screaming for her mother, and she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know the mental health aspect about it. She just sees a lady frantically screaming, wanting to contact her parents in the middle of a busy street.
Right.
So she's thinking, who are these guys running after her? Did they kidnap her, or what's going on? So she's trying to really help her.
Mm-hmm.
An altercation takes place. Jason steps in with the lady that's trying to help, while Ben Michael takes Chloe and the baby, puts them in the car. They leave.
Mm-hmm.
Jason apparently assaults the lady.
Wow.
As she's trying to get help, and then he leaves and fleds. There's charges brought against him, and he ends up going to jail for that because the lady had broken bones to her face, but she was going to be fine. He hit her.
My God.
Yeah.
He took that on a whole different level.
Yeah. But now to hear his side of it, he said that the lady was drunk and belligerent and all of this, and the only reason why that he hit her is because that she had hit another neighbor. And he was trying to break it up, and so the only way he could break it up was to pick her up and throw her onto the ground, and that's all he had to do with it. But she says otherwise.
What a mess.
Yeah. So Chloe also thought she was the one who created COVID because of the C and the D. Those were her initials.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And she thought bonfires and trees could speak to her, and she thinks that everyone can read everyone's mind. Everybody has the capability of reading everybody's mind. And she was completely isolated from everyone. So taking someone who has been through all this trauma and has the mental illnesses such as these, and you insert them into a cult-like setting is like the perfect storm.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, they thoroughly believe in stories from the Bible, and if people could talk to burning bushes in the Bible,
Right. Yeah.
then why couldn't she?
Right. I mean, it's so dangerous. And I'm going to go way out on a limb here. And I've never done this before. I'm not even sure if you know that I thought about this before. So I'm sure you probably know that I'm so fascinated with schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I am too.
It's my favorite. If I had to pick a favorite mental illness, it would be schizophrenia. Because it makes me wonder, people hear these voices and things that are not there, but what if they are?
I've thought about the same thing.
What if they're a ghost? What if that's who they're hearing?
Oh, I believe in ghosts.
Yeah. So what if the things that they hear and they see, what if they just have a special talent that we don't have?
But they might.
They have
I've
a
thought
special
about
gift.
that a lot.
Yeah.
And then we've deemed them crazy.
Yeah, just because
As society.
because we don't see it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Mm-hmm. Well, so that's just like you with a lady in your medical history who had the issue with seeing things, and you showed her the little trick about taking a photo of the situation.
Right.
To help her determine what was in reality here
And what
on
was
this
not.
plane.
Yeah.
And now, not one time did you claim that it was a figment of her imagination.
Right.
But it's not in this existence right here for the rest of us to see.
Right.
So,
Like, it's not my place to tell you you're wrong. It just like it's not my place to tell you that, for instance, my mother-in-law is Roman Catholic. I am so not. But it's not my place to say your religion is wrong and mine's right.
right. Exactly.
Because who am I to say that?
Because everybody is allowed their own journey.
Right.
And we all are gifted that with the gift of free will when we're brought here onto this earth. And she had a right to the same thing. But also there's the fact that there's your truth, their truth, and then there's
The truth.
which is
Who knows?
exactly.
I mean, can you imagine what it would be like? I mean, every day when you get up in the morning and you go outside and you get in your car and you see it's raining, but nobody else can see it's raining. But you see it's raining.
So you're carrying around an umbrella?
Yeah, and everybody else says it's sunshining outside, and they're looking at you like you've got three heads, wondering why in the world you're carrying around an umbrella when you see rain, and wondering why nobody else is carrying an umbrella.
And you just rolled your hair real pretty and you don't want to go outside. You're like, I don't want to go out there. It's going to mess up my hair. They're like, what?
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine? And stuff that you hear and you turn around and look, like, what'd you just say? But nobody else heard it but you. Can you imagine what it would be like to actually have to live that way?
No, I can't.
I mean, that is so torturous for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to wake up every day when you realize that nobody else can hear these things and wonder, okay, did I really hear that? Or did everybody hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Did I see that? Am I the only one that sees that? Or is everybody else? Can everybody else see that?
And living with the fact that every single day, everybody invalidated your personal truth.
Mm-hmm.
Continuous invalidation of your truth.
Yeah. And I honestly think that, in the Bible they talked about, people that were crazy and they would go down to the healing springs or whatever. It wasn't until, my youngest son, when he was little, he was an issue, I guess. would be something to say. I mean, he really did have some issues. It was like somebody would flip the switch on him.
But as a grown man, he's kind of damn funny.
Yeah, he's fine now. But when he was little, like when he was 18 months old, I took him to a psychiatrist because I was extremely, extremely concerned about him. And I actually told my father if I didn't know any better, I would think he was possessed. And I really believe that. My dad thought I was nuts until he actually saw it for the first time. But they wanted to put him on lithium. He was 18 months old. He was on Depakote. They put him on lithium. And I was worried about the lithium because I thought that's an antipsychotic. That's a very strong drug. And he's only 18 months old.
It would have destroyed his kidneys.
Yeah, I mean, he was 18 months old. But then I got to looking at it, and the psychiatrist said, it's actually one of the safest drugs, that and Prozac. So I got to looking at it. And I had bought a book about it. Come to find out, lithium's been around for thousands of years.
Forever.
And in the Bible, when they're talking about the crazy people went down to the springs and they were healed, it was a lithium spring.
Interesting.
Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah. So, anyway, I know that we just got off on a major tangent there, but people with schizophrenia really fascinate me, and I mean that in the most respectful way. The mind astonishes me of the things, and to know that we only use a very small portion of our brain amazes me as well. I think I believe that God created us, and the amount of precision and amazement that it takes to make a human being. I mean, we can't duplicate that yet, It just astonishes me. But when you think of someone who has something like schizophrenia and you just label them immediately as crazy, but what if they're not crazy? What if they do hear things that we're just not gifted to hear?
I'm in agreement with that.
Or they see things that we're just not gifted to see. Children see things that we can't see. Dogs, animals pick up on things that we can't. So maybe they're just gifted and not really ill, per se.
We have labeled so many things.
Right. Now, I will say that this lady suffered. She did. The types of delusions that she had ended up going the wrong way. She did not get any help for her delusion. She was not medicated. And most importantly, she was not getting any treatment. She was not going to therapy at all. And the goal was for Ben Michael to have 100 wives.
What?
Yeah, some said 1,000 wives. I'm just going to put that as 100. 1,000 seems to be a bit much, so I just minimized that to 100. As time went on, and especially after she had the baby, she realized that maybe his belief system was not 100% accurate. I mean, she wanted the baby to have a somewhat of a normal life. She worried about Hannah not getting medical care, and she wanted Hannah to have interactions with other kids, and this is where she begins to decompensate. She begins to question things, and she also begins to use CBD oil. Now, that was the only thing that she was allowed to use because it was natural.
I wonder how that affected her mind.
Well, you take somebody that's already hallucinating, that has delusions, you mix cannabis in there anywhere, that's going to make it worse. But you mix CBD oil in there, you're going to have the same effect. I mean, that's one thing that pot does to you, especially even if you don't have any mental illnesses. It can make you hallucinate. Trust me, I know, because it made me hallucinate.
I bet that was fun.
Oh yeah, I thought the cops were going to pull me over and I was going to lose every license I ever had.
I may or may not have been the culprit of part of that.
Yeah. Jamie was all over that one. Just saying. I'm like, I'm going to lose
Not
everything.
the hallucination. It was
I'm
the
gonna
offering of the cannabis.
Yeah. I'm going to lose all my medical license. I'm going to lose my law license. I'm going to lose my...
Those were the days.
Yes, my bounty hunting license. I'm losing it all. Yeah, that was funny. My husband thought that was hilarious. I'm like, it is not funny. I will never do that again. And believe it or not, I mean, I actually hated it. I did not like not being in control. It really bothered me. I did not like being in control, and I was so paranoid.
It was supposed to make you zen.
It did not. It done the opposite. I was so paranoid. I'm like, this is supposed to make me relax and chill, man. It did not.
We
do
should
that.
have known your history with medical anything always goes the opposite direction for you.
It did not.
What
And-
is? You do not go to the lithium springs.
No. No, it will do the opposite. And I did buy the CBD gummies, because it's supposed to help you sleep and shit. No.
Never again.
No. I have them in the drawer down there. It does the opposite to me. It does not do those things. Anybody want any gummies? I have some. You can have them for free. Those things are tablets of the devil.
Watch, somebody's going to send you a message now. Be like, my address is...
I will totally send them. I'm telling you. With somebody who has ADHD, it seems like everything I take has the opposite effect. So, Benadryl, Phenergan, stuff that makes you supposedly sleep.
That is
up.
after you verify that they're 21 years old.
I really don't care. I mean, as long as you're over 18, I mean, who cares? Okay, because I'm on a recording, yeah, you have to be 21 years old. I don't know what I was thinking.
I thought you might backpedal on that one when you think about it for a second.
Yeah, you must be 21 years old. Drinks Dr. Pepper here.
Anyway, moving on.
Yes. So, they get to the house that they had stayed in a couple of months to retrieve the last of their things. So, what happened is they would go from house to house, from state to state. And they would stay here for a couple of months, here a couple of months. But they finally, Chloe had taken out a loan for like a bunch of money. They bought a house in Florida. They were going to settle down. And so she was...
So why didn't he take out a loan, Mr. Big Dad?
I guess he couldn't. She took it out.
Huh.
So she got the loan. They were going to move into this place in Florida, and it was supposed to be kind of isolated. So kind of peaceful, where she can make her own garden, things like that. So they went to Knoxville to get her stuff. Then they went to this last house to get the very last of her things before heading down to Florida to start the rest of their life. It was at this house.
In Florida?
No.
In Tennessee?
No, I think it was in North Carolina before all of this went down.
Oh.
Ben Michael snaps his fingers and tells Hannah, go into the other room. So Chloe took this sign as if the time is now.
Just because he went,
snap, snap. Yep, snap, snap. So she went to change Hannah's diaper, but didn't have a diaper. So she asked someone, hey, could somebody bring me a diaper upstairs? But someone threw her a dirty t-shirt. Okay. She took this as it was a sign that she wasn't worthy of this world and that she needed to leave this world. She wasn't even worthy of a clean shirt. And that's when she did it.
wow.
She locked the door. She went over to the bed where Hannah was laying, and she took a knife and she slashed her throat. Now, Hannah was 13 months old.
Oh, God dang.
She then stabbed herself over and over and then slashed her own throat. She stabbed herself a total of 5 times.
How does anybody do that? More than,
Yeah.
I mean, more or less that many times. That's crazy.
Now, Ben Michael knocks on the door, but Chloe doesn't answer. So he finally kicks in the door, only to find blood everywhere. he screams. Outside at the van, Jason hears Ben Michaels screams, and he runs inside, up the stairs, followed by the other women. When they make it to the top of the stairs, they find Ben Michael holding onto Hannah's neck and trying to give her mouth to mouth. Blood was everywhere.
I'd say so.
One of the other women called 911, and Jason began to attend to Chloe's wounds. She had stabbed herself in the neck and in the chest. She begged him to stop because she wanted to die. She said, "Leave me alone. Let me die." And Hannah was gurgling, and Jason was holding Chloe down to help with the bleeding, but she wanted to see Hannah one last time before she died, and she was holding her hand.
Oh, wow.
So, Chloe had really began to go downhill about 2 months before the incident. She had always had magical thinking, dating as far back as a teenager. She had also heard voices, and when things got bad or when she got stressed, the voices would get worse. And she found peace and stability when she found Ben Michael, something she never had at home. She was able to come off the drugs that she was self-medicating with. She began clean eating, and everything began looking up until Hannah was born, and Ben Michael began taking on more wives. Ben Michael had also hit her a few times. Her mother had testified to seeing her with a black eye and reported it to authorities. Once she called her mother to come get her and Hannah, but Ben Michael found out and came and took Hannah and told Chloe that if she left with her mother, that she would never see Hannah again. So Chloe was afraid that she wouldn't see Hannah, so she stayed.
Wow.
Now, on a jail phone call to Ben Michael, she told him that she just couldn't take it anymore. All of this controlling behavior and the threats. She said she couldn't take any more of the blame. Ben Michael told her that they didn't blame her, that she blamed herself.
The mother?
Yeah, the mother said that she couldn't take any more of the blame, and then he said that they didn't blame her, that she's the one that blamed herself. Ben Michael told her that they didn't blame her at all. She stated that the other girls hated her, and that is why she would move to different places, and that she just wanted a normal life with just her, him, and the baby. Now, she was evaluated. She had a clean talk screen. She wasn't able to verbally communicate her answers due to her wounds at the time, so she wrote down all of her answers. She said the only way out was to die, that she and her baby was a sin, and that she was feeding her sin into Hannah by breastfeeding her. She also couldn't take the lifestyle any longer and couldn't get out of it because Ben Michael would take Hannah and she wouldn't be able to see her anymore. She stated that she begged for attention for the last 2 years, that the family was ganging up on her and leaving her out of things. She began taking CBD to help her with the symptoms, but it seemed to make it worse, and Ben Michael made her take more of it than what she had wanted. She said Ben Michael eventually kept her from her parents and everyone, and that he finally turned really cold and mean. And for the righteousness of the Holy Spirit, he was one way. But once he got everyone converted, he would change. She said she obeyed him 99% of the time. But then she started to question his teaching after she began taking the CBD. And he rarely hit her before that, but had began to hit her more over the last 2 months. She stated that she was crazy and that she had wished she was dead. And she refused to take medication due to her belief system. When they could get her to take medication, she improved significantly. But then she would go right back to the way she was after she would refuse medication. Seems that she would take it once she felt normal. She would quit taking the medication, thinking that she was cured and that she didn't need it any longer, so she would stop. But that's the reason why you feel normal, is because the medication
This is
working.
the MO of so many
Yes.
people with psychological issues. This is a normal thing.
You feel better because the medication is working, not because you're cured. There
You're
is no cure for that. None.
Yeah.
Sorry, but there's none. Just like
For
there's
bipolar, like
Yes.
none of that stuff.
There's no cure for it. And that's fine. Who gives a shit? Nobody gives a shit if there's no cure for it. That's fine. Take medication for the rest of your life and be fine. You take medication for diabetes. People take medication for eczema. People take medication for migraines. So you take medication for bipolar or schizophrenia. No one gives a shit. Just take your medication. That's all you got to do. I mean,
And clean the bathroom sink.
yes. Please. There is no different. And it bothers me so much because there's so much stigma with mental illness. You know, people deem people crazy. You are crazy if you don't go get help. I mean, seriously. It is no different than you having freaking high blood pressure. Who gives a shit? Nobody does. Nobody cares. The only thing that matters is so your brain's not producing the chemicals that it should be. Okay, fine. So you take medication that tries to alter the chemicals and balances the chemicals that should be balanced. Great. Take your medication. Do not stop. Now, it may take several different tries of different medications because it's not like we can draw your blood and say, oh, your serotonin's lacking about 50%. Let me give you about 50% worth of serotonin and we'll get this shit fixed. Unfortunately, we can't do that.
It's a practice.
Yes, it is a practice.
We're all just practicing here.
Yes.
And we're all a little mad.
That's true. But stay with us, you know? Because we're trying. But once we get the right medication, it's brilliant because it works. And it works well. The fact of the matter is people, once they take it and they feel fine, they're like, oh, I'm cured. I don't need the medication anymore. No. The reason why you don't need medication anymore is because the medication worked. So when you stop taking the medication, you go back to the way you were. And I'm sorry, but even if you are mentally ill, that doesn't mean that you're stupid and you don't know this. Come on, people.
Take a cue from your peers who say, if they look at you after you've had this mental condition and you've been doing well and nobody ever says, hey, did you take your medicine today? Then when they start asking you, hey, so you been taking your medicine?
Yeah.
Here's a real clue. Here's your sign.
It's like my ex. He used to say that he never needed medication. And it's like, okay, well, let me ask you a question. When I ask you how long has it been since you've taken your medication, if you didn't need medication, then how do I know when you've not been taking your medication?
Inquiring minds want to know.
That should be a flag. Because if you didn't need medication, then I wouldn't have a clue when you're taking it when you're not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a pill.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has to know. And who cares if people do know? Do you know how much medicine I take? I'm telling you. I don't take anything for mental illness, but if I did, I wouldn't care to tell you. I mean, I take everything else. God. But hey, if that's what it takes to make sure that I function, I ain't a bit ashamed of it. Shoot, that's what it's out there for.
That's true.
Okay, anyway, back off that rant. So, at one point, she thought that we were all in a movie about hell and that everyone was actors and we could always rewind the tape, and when you die, you don't really die, that you can always go back.
Well, the part about hell, I could probably jive with that information because
some of that
feel
I
like,
could.
yeah.
Sometimes I
but
wonder
now
if
the
I'm
other
hell.
part, so much for that.
But think about that though. In her mind, if she just killed her child, thinking that she could rewind it and go back.
Oh, wow. Not realizing that the reality was that you can't
That you can't go back.
undo it.
Because at first I was like, oh yeah, no, sometimes I do believe I'm in hell.
There's some things
But
you
then-
can't redo, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
You can't reverse.
Yeah. So a psychologist stated that her being in a cult-like relationship unmedicated was the perfect storm for her. And a lot of people who are in a cult-like relationships have a hunger for knowledge, guidance, leadership, and help finding their identity. And usually they join in late adolescence. She already had mental issues and had issues with who she was, attachment issues, delusions. She was desperate for love and security. And she was 16 when she met him. She was the perfect member for a cult.
Of course she was.
And the doctor believed she was having a psychotic episode days leading up to the murder and the day of the murder. She was in a delusional state of mind when this occurred. The amount of control that Ben Michael had over her was extreme. On phone calls, Ben Michael was making sure that she was still drinking her own urine, making sure that she understood what she could and could not do, what she could and could not eat, and what she could and could not drink. When she was resistant, he said, I was expecting a different answer. I expected, I do, Daddy, I do. They would go back and forth until she told him what he wanted to hear. When she did, he would praise her. When he told her he wanted her to take that $60,000 and put it into his account, and she asked what he was going to do with that, he said, why are you questioning me?
Huh.
She was like, because I have a right to know what you're going to do with my money.
You think?
He said, no, you don't.
He didn't like her sudden empowerment.
No. And you don't ask that question. Are you doubting me? And so he went on a long rant and told her how dumb she was not to talk to her mother, and that every time she talks to her, she gets pear-shaped and stupid.
Pear-shaped?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you know what that means?
Well, I mean, picture a pear. Have you met a pear-shaped person? A pear-shaped woman has small boobs and a big ass. Tiny little legs.
I used to have a big ass, but I never had tiny legs. I was like big, big, big. Well, I did have small boobs at one time until I got implants. No, I don't know what she means by pear. I don't know what he means by pear-shaped. I don't understand what, unless he's thinking that she thinks with her ass and not with her head.
Maybe.
I don't know. She tried to interrupt him, but he said there's nothing else you need to change. He told her that she was not to represent him as being controlling or a manipulative person.
Oh.
He told her that she would not make him look that way in her defense.
Is that so?
Yeah.
He's going to have a hard time not looking that way.
Yeah. Now, as long as she agreed, he was very sweet. And if she didn't agree, he was very controlling and would not stop until she was 100% compliant. Everyone around him agreed that Chloe was a very good mother, and she took very great care of Hannah and doted on her. What is sad is that she was begging for help,
the whole
she
time.
was denied that help.
Mm-hmm.
So, in November, a jury found 24-year-old Chloe Driver guilty but mentally ill of all charges in December 2020 of the death of her daughter, Hannah Driver. Chloe was convicted on charges of malice murder, felony murder, cruelty to children in the first degree, and aggravated assault. Chloe was also sentenced to an additional 20 years to be served concurrently since the victim was under the age of 18. Chief Judge Ellen McElia noted that Georgia's statute indicates parole eligibility after 30 years. So I'm curious to know your thoughts. Was she trying to get out and thought that this was the only way? Or was she really insane?
I just really feel like that she had mental health issues that were untreated.
I agree with you. I mean, I do think she had mental illnesses that was untreated. And I do think, though, that if she were to be let loose, that because she's still malleable, or however you want to put the term, she is eligible to be persuaded or manipulated in a way to promote whatever devious act somebody else has.
Yeah, she's definitely at risk for reoffending in some manner due to her mental health incapabilities and the fact that we don't have the facilities to help in that situation. So people are spending their lives in prison, which is a shame. However,
is.
people lost their lives.
It is. I mean, I feel so sorry for that baby in one sense because she never had her life. In the other sense, what kind of life could she have had living in a cult-like setting
Yeah, she was going to grow
as
up
what she would have had?
and probably end up having mental health issues herself too,
Yeah.
likely. But who's to say she never got an opportunity?
That's true.
But mom was sick, and it's a tragedy for all parties involved,
That's true.
except for maybe the husband. Now, I can't even with that guy.
Yeah, that's something I don't clearly understand. I mean, to me, it almost seems selfish.
It is selfish.
You
He's
know?
selfish, but he's probably got some issues himself. I mean, we've all got some kind of issue from something in our past that causes us to have the behaviors that we have. The question that we need to ask as society is, are our behaviors a risk to other humans? And when it crosses the line in that way where we become harmful to other people, that's where we should not be in society. And he's almost he probably made her condition worse.
Oh, absolutely. Because he refused her help.
And he's facing 0 charges.
Absolutely. Yeah. He denied her of help when he knew that she was way off.
He
and
was a
that
predator.
she needed help in that way. And he knew that she was vulnerable because, number one, her age, and because of the background that she came from. He knew that she was the perfect mold for him to get what he wanted. And
I have 0 sympathy for that guy.
for him to be that old and for her to be that young, I mean, it's just pedophile all over again. And for him to not suffer any consequences whatsoever,
And he goes on with his
Burns-
polygamy.
yeah, burns my ass. It
Yeah.
really does. Because to me, he took a child, in a sense, and had her have a child. And he fucked them both over.
Yeah,
in my
and she was
sense.
mentally unstable to begin with. And no doubt in my mind, in your mind, I'm sure that he knew that. He knew it.
Absolutely.
He was fine with it. He wanted what he wanted when he wanted it.
Yeah. He wanted all the wives. He wanted all the control. Everything had to be under his rules, under his dominance, under his control.
To me, he's the monster. And if you ever listen to this, buddy, you're the monster here.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. He is the monster. And for him not to get any charges whatsoever is appalling to me.
Yep.
It's
There
sad.
is a definite lack of justice in that part of it, in my opinion. And like she says, our opinions are just that.
Yeah, well, I do hope that Chloe somehow can find some peace. I don't know how. Knowing, I mean, I couldn't imagine being a mother thinking that that's what she thought was best for her child and herself, and then knowing that her child is gone and that she remains.
She'll live with that the rest of her life.
I know. That's got to be miserable in itself.
Yep.
Um,
I hope they get her some mental help in there.
I do hope that they get her some mental help. But if anybody is out there that is in any type of situation such as this, I strongly advise you to go get some help anywhere. Go get you some help. There is help in several areas. I will post a number for domestic violence, even though it may not be considered domestic violence, but they should be able to resource you out to someone who can help with your situation. I will leave the numbers available to you on the site. So if you have an issue like this, or you know somebody that's in a situation, please refer them to the site, or to be able to call the number on there. I appreciate you guys for listening to our rants as usual. And until next time, guys, this has been a Southern Sass production. Please like and subscribe and refer to your friends. And until next time, guys, be safe and avoid rest stops.
Bye-bye.